We are here in the dining room of the McNeelys, and this is the room we typically gather in. Sometimes it's all of us, sometimes it's just a few of us. On Wednesdays, it's typically just Judith and me, where we'll spend somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 or 8 hours in prayer over the world, over every person we've ever met and known. We'll quote Spurgeon and Calvin and just good. No, sorry. Here, wanted to just talk about a subject, dear Judith, that is certainly controversial in today's day and age. It is, you bring the subject up, some people immediately say, oh, no. And yet it's a biblical subject. It's something that we've got to address and talk about. So we've talked a little bit already about what it is, what the Bible has to say about it. What we really want to find out is, though, from you, from a woman's perspective, how does it flesh itself out? You know, what does it look like when you apply this principle? So it's the S word, submission. Really, first of all, what is submission not?
Submission is not your voice not being heard. So that is never submission, where you don't get to speak at all, or have an opinion, or have just a thought about what is going on. Or if it's ever any form of abuse or feeling like, I think a term you use is doormat, where you're just kind of stepped upon, that is never submission. Submission should always be respectful and loving, and it should always honor the other person.
From your perspective, how easy do you find it to submit?
Not easy at all. No. I mean, in Genesis, it even says for the women have a desire for their husband, and that is not a sexual desire, that is a desire to control. So therefore, it's already in us as women. We want to control our husbands. So it's unnatural. It's something that we have to choose. So no, it does not come easily. I think we have to remember that our submission is first and foremost to God before it's to our husbands. And if I submit to God, then there's a natural respect that comes, and for you, and for what his desires are for me. Even to move here, it was not easy. There was nothing easy about it. When you had that desire, I did not want to do it. And for me, I had to ask God, what is it that he wanted? There have been lots of tears, lots of heartache, and it doesn't mean that you were right, I was wrong, I was right, you were wrong. It just means I have to ask God first. And submit to him first. And I'm accountable to him first, not you. That's ultimately what it is. And my worth and value does not come from you. It comes from God. So if I'm seeking God in that submission, then it naturally leads me to submission towards you. And it's a respectful, honoring submission when it's God. He's not going to ever ask anything of me that is degrading or demeaning or demoralizing. That is not who God is. So if I can hold on to that and go with that measure, then I know that my submission to you is as it is to God.
Over the years, I know there are some times in which it's probably easier to choose that, and other times it's harder.
Yeah.
How do you choose to do that when you just don't want to? You may not want to because I'm just being a jerk. That one time, you remember that I was a jerk early in our marriage, but outside, it could be that I'm just being a jerk. It could be that life circumstances are really challenging, hard, whatever it may be. When you don't feel like it, how have you found help to be able to choose it?
I think in two ways. You've even taught me this, that I need to remember past and character traits over the past. Like if I could kind of remember who you are and the life you've given us, our family, the integrity that you've had, you've been a jerk, you're human, you're sinful. But I think if I can remember your track record and ask God to bring that to mind when I'm just frustrated and don't want to do this and don't want to, I don't know, be a helpmate to you even. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And I have to remember back, okay, what is his character? Has he been a man worth following? And that's always the big question, are you a man worth following? Yes, you have proven you are. Have you done it perfectly? No. So there's that. And then I also was encouraged by a friend a long time ago that in Luke 5, there's 4 men who take a man and they open up, because he can't do it himself, they open up the roof of a home and they get him to Jesus. And call them rooftop friends, but they're friends who are always going to point me to Jesus, and they're always going to honor you. Now, they may get ticked at you as well. I mean, they're going to be honest about that, but they're people I trust. If I can call on them, they can always lift up that roof and point me back to Jesus. Here recently, just with the move and everything else, and my questioning sometimes, my frustration, they always are able to say, okay, and then point me back to what is Jesus.
What about a time that you would look back at and say, hey, here's a time in which I chose not to do this. Here's a time that I chose to go on my own. And
Our dog.
flesh that out. What does that
I
mean?
can't stand our dog. No, she's fine. But I chose, you told me, you didn't say no. But you said, I do not wish to do this in a sense of, I don't think it's wise. And I'm thinking I was going to be this great mom and give them this dog, and they would just love me that much more because I'm this fun mom that gave my dog. I got this dog, and of course I have lived to regret it every moment of the last 3 years. So yes, that was one where I go, okay, I should have totally listened to you in that, and I did not. Well, I mean, that's more of a funny example, but yes, I mean, and sometimes in monetary things that we've done, I've had to just bite my tongue, and when things go awry, not say, I told you so, I told you so, and that's the hardest thing for me to do. That does not come naturally. I have to really ask God, okay, I don't need to relive offenses. It's done. It's over. Yes, we're reaping the consequences of that, but it doesn't do me any good to tell you that over and over again. So, what will God have me do from this point on when a decision like that is made that I was not heard or my counsel was not given to? Mm-hmm. And you have been good to come back and say, I was wrong. So that's helpful. But I mean, even when you didn't, I think for me it's to say, okay, I can either hold offenses or I can just say, God, how in the world can I overlook this? Because of my own strength, I can't. Yeah. I can't.
Have you been able to look back and over the years you say, hey, look, there's been some really good things that have come from this? I mean, has there been, in the sense of when you know you have walked in obedience to the Scripture, empowered by the Holy Spirit, do you find wisdom from God in setting a system up like this?
I do. I think, I'm a pretty strong person, emotionally, physically, for the most part. But when I think about our boys, they're bigger than me now. I mean, they could physically hurt me, but the umbrella of protection falls on you to be their lead and to show them how to be a man. I can't do that for them. So the blessing of the umbrella of protection where you are an umbrella over me, it doesn't mean that you, it's not a rock where I'm smothered underneath you. It is an umbrella where I am protected from you. But I'm still under the umbrella with you equally. But you're the one holding it, I guess, and you're the one that's holding on to it. And blessing comes with that. It's just sometimes it's hard to see at the time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the moves that we've made have gone kicking and screaming, and yet have seen blessings of friendships and jobs, and I've had a lot of just strong relationships because of the moves we've made. I don't know that I want to make any more, but no. So I have seen blessing in that.
Anything, any advice or counsel that you would give? It could have been some that was given to you. It could have been some that you've just learned over the years. Maybe someone who is newly married or someone that's about to get married. What counsel advice would you give them?
As always, unless there's abuse involved or something like that, try to give them the benefit of the doubt. My big thing is always for anyone, and that's your husband should be first and foremost, you should be, is to have compassion for their story. Try to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, let me think about why he might be doing this before I just get angry. And it's hard to do. It's hard to step back in that moment and say, when I'm frustrated with you, or I just can't see straight, and I don't feel like God's helping sometimes, I go, okay, but I need to step back and think about why he might be doing this. Doesn't excuse you, but at least it kind of gives me compassion for what's driving you, whether stress at work, whether something else going on. So, because I would want the same for me.
Sure.
Marriage altogether is a lesson in selfishness and unselfishness. And you're always gonna just wrestle. That tension is always gonna be there of unselfishness and selfishness. And so it's just fighting it, all day, and how to fight it with friends, with compassion for their story, with God being who I submit to before you. So if I'm submitting to God, and he's the one who says who I am and what my value is and what I'm worth, then I can come to you healthier in submission.
So early in our marriage, we had this dynamic. There was a counselor in North Carolina that helped us work through that.
Right.
And so the dynamic was Pastor David, parishioner Judith. That both of us seemed to be, we were unconscious of it, but we were comfortable with it.
Right.
He helped us realize, man, this was nowhere close to God's design.
Mm-hmm. God's
design is spouses, equal in value, substance, and glory, different role and function. There. How did, first of all, just a little bit about that initial dynamic, and then how did that change from your perspective?
So when we were married, I think it was under the guise in my eyes that you were going to fix me. But I was so broken at the time, deeply wounded and broken, that once we married, that I really didn't have a voice, and you were just going to fix me. Everything was going to be okay, and that wasn't right. But I didn't know that at the time, so submission was not healthy. And it also did not lend me to rely on God, because I was so, I just got to do whatever David's supposed to do. And what it meant for me to be a helpmate to you was to keep up with your wallet and keys. Well, Judith will fix him too. I mean, mostly fix me, but Judith will help him be organized. And that's not what a helpmate is. And that's not the way, true submission is not me helping you pick up after you. That is not submission. But it was what I was taught in the beginning. And I think over time, as I realized health in that and submission, I've been able to have a clearer voice and a stronger voice and what it really means to submit to you. And I know we've said in the past that for men, they go into a marriage hoping their wives never change, and that women go into a marriage hoping their husbands will change. And that is not healthy. And, we're all going to change. I mean, we've changed over time as submission, and through heartache and through pain and through joys and through so many things. I mean, when you hold a child in your arms that God doesn't let you enjoy past that birth, I mean, there's no way that you can prepare yourself for that kind of event. And so you go, well, what is submission now? Through those experiences, my submission to you gains more clarity. Because you've shown me, again, looking back, a man of integrity and somebody worth following. So I'm still not going to find your keys for you.
That's a bummer.
I know that's a whole different subject.